Hello, friends. In my best Jim Nance voice, you have found Pitching In. I'm Jason Mackey, alongside, as always, Michael McHenry. We are brought to you by the North Shore Tavern. If you love baseball, you'll love the North Shore Tavern. The interior is wall-to-wall Pirates. There are appetizers, entrees, cocktails, and of course, steak and seafood on a sizzling lava stone. Open every day. The North Shore Tavern, across from PNC Park. It's Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. We're recording this before Thanksgiving. You will probably be watching or listening to this after Thanksgiving. Ford, I don't know about you. Thanksgiving is right up there in the BCS rankings of holidays for me. Where is it for you? What do you love or hate about Thanksgiving?
Did you drop a rankings?
A BCS. I dropped the BCS rankings on you.
I love it. So it's voted on. And so it's
it's voted on.
Yeah, I love it.
You can't hate Thanksgiving, right? Like there's nobody that hates Thanksgiving. I would hope not.
No, I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit of part Pilgrim, part Indian. I mean, I'm married in India and I feel like a little bit of a Pilgrim. So yeah, I feel like it's a part of me.
You got to explain that metaphor. What do you mean there?
Well, I just feel like I don't know. I'm a full-blooded American and I've married an Indian. So I feel like kind of a mixture of both in our family. So we're just sitting at the table and enjoying life and celebrating all the things we have to, this great life. I mean, I think too often we forget why Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving, so I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for you, Mackie, our friendship, this podcast, and everything else that, fortunate in life. I know there's a lot of struggle in life, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more good.
Right back at you, brother. Right back at you. And I love it. I love stuffing my face, but I also love, you're right. It's a time to think and appreciate and respect. And we're actually heading out this afternoon to go volunteer at our church to pack up some first responder meals.
Amazing.
So yeah, good stuff. Great holiday. We have cool traditions in our house. My father-in-law was a big runner back in the day, and he would go for a run in the morning and then come home and eat pie for breakfast. And so I try to carry that on. I want to try to run. I'm going to get up and run tomorrow. My wife loves the Thanksgiving Day parade. That is appointment viewing in our house.
Yes.
So we do that. And then
how far do you run, Mackie?
Tomorrow's probably going to be 5 miles.
5 miles?
Yeah. Something like that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get up and do something. I don't know if I'm going to run 5 miles, but
okay.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I like the pie for breakfast idea.
Yeah.
I may carry that on with you.
All right. And we will get to our ideal Thanksgiving meal situation. We'll end with that, but I want to get into some baseball talk with you, Ford. I think there's some interesting stuff to sort of outline. We can't talk directly about Matt Canada, although it seems like the rest of the world is. We're going to talk, though, about Andy Haynes and the vitriol directed towards some assistants, whether it's applicable to Andy Haynes, Oscar Marine. Why people get so upset about that? Not quite sure. I talked to Don Kelly and David Bednar the other day outside of the Berg Proud event. Always good conversation with those guys, but I'm intrigued by Don Kelly, what a bench coach does, what he does so well, et cetera. A couple moves, news tidbits we'll get into, and maybe some charity work talk. I know, Fort, you've done a lot of that, and it's admirable, and I'm curious how that plays inside the locker room. But our lead topic today is going to be Andy Haynes and sort of the parallel to Matt Canada. No secret to Pirates fans how much sort of Andy Haynes and the approach and whatever has irritated people. I know you are a big believer, though, in Andy Haynes. Why?
One, he's a great baseball mind. He didn't get there easily. I think if you understand his story, he is the epitome of what Pittsburgh is. He fought, he clawed, and he's won everywhere he's gone. I mean, I think he's well regarded in the industry, and I know the guys like him. I think his greatest gift is looking at the game differently, being able to explain it to younger players. I think where he falls short is probably with the older guys, because he didn't play in the major leagues. He didn't play in the minor leagues. And I think sometimes that makes it tough to gain maybe some steam with older guys. But, just the fact that he's really dug in with Reynolds and DeLay and Sawinski and some of these guys that are going to be staples for a long time, I think he's kind of proven that he's on the right track. And no matter what, I've told you this, Mackie, in any of those jobs, you need time. And I think too often we think that turnover is the right thing. Sometimes it is. I don't know the whole story about Matt Canada, that they were not performing on the field, but part of that's because of the player. And you have to give it time, and you have to identify what does the player do well. And I was just listening to a podcast with Tony Dungy on it. And he said, you can't coach the player. It's my way or the highway. You coach the players like, hey, let's get on this highway together. We may have to switch some lanes, do some things. Maybe you have to get off and get back on, but we'll figure out a way to succeed together. And that's ultimately all you got to do. It's about the human being, not just the athlete. And I think Andy Haynes and Don Kelly and a lot of those guys do a great job of seeing the person first. Sometimes they forget, but most of the time, I believe they do a great job. And that's how you really dig in with these guys.
Yeah, to me, it's a mix. Like, I can understand where fans are coming from.
Absolutely.
They want results. They want the Pirates to win. It's very easy to blame Andy Haynes, the offensive coordinator. Right. I can understand the player side, and I understand what you're saying with it takes time. I think the variable in here that makes this so darn complicated, and maybe the difference between Matt Canada and Andy Haynes and any other, Todd Reardon might be the parallel for the Penguins. You're running the power play. The power play should be better. One variable I think that's different with the Pirates is just the average age of their roster. They're dealing with younger clientele. Whereas, I know you're going to point to Kenny Pickett for the Steelers angle and say, well, you're dealing with a second-year quarterback, whatever. But one, that's a high draft pick. Things are shorter with the Steelers, with football or whatever. They've invested a lot into their offense, and I think you're expecting different results. Where the Pirates, yes, you've expected a lot, but you're also expecting a largely inexperienced roster in a sport where it takes longer to do these things quicker. If that makes any sense. That sounded like a bunch of gobbledygook coming out of my mouth. But you're expecting immediate results in not an immediate results business. And that's not explaining away or making excuses for Andy Haynes. I just think that those two things are going to be at odds, where fans are going to want results, and naturally they're not going to come as quickly as anybody wants.
Right. And think about this too. We don't often talk about most of these guys that are going to the big leagues have not had Andy Haynes. When you go to the NFL, you have an offensive coordinator, you have a quarterback's coach. You don't have 18 voices. And I think it's a very difficult balance as a player, one, to give someone your trust because you're at the pinnacle. Finally, you made it. It took you years to get to this spot, and you have to trust. I think Jared Triolo probably is the greatest example I've seen in a decade that just kind of laid everything down and said, yeah, sure. Let's go ahead. I'll stand up taller. I'll create more space. I'll do everything that I've never done.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. But when you have an elite skill like he does, I'm sure he knew that, hey, I'm one of the best defenders. I'm confident in that. If I can take a step forward, I'm going to be a different player.
Yeah.
So there's some guys that have that ability. Most guys don't. So when you get to the big leagues, you're trying to find your identity, find out who you're going to belong with inside the locker room when it comes to coaches, other players. So you have someone to go to. Oviedo found Kutch. That's a big, big step forward for guys to find that guy that they can lean on, ask, difficult questions, also keep them accountable. So I think with baseball, it's a different animal, but it also shows that it has to be a village. It has to be a village. It has to be a collective group of not yes men, but people that are striving to make the player better. So ultimately, if each and every player gets a little bit better, the team's going to be a lot better.
I think, and I love the Oviedo and Kutch relationship, by the way.
Me too.
I wrote about that this past season. I've had, just a side note on Oviedo, I've had so many people email, tweet, just approach me in person about the Oviedo news. And I agree with it. It still just hurts my heart, man. What this dude was headed toward. And again, the latest, I don't think he's had Tommy John surgery, but that's certainly something that has been.
That's where I'm at too.
Yeah. Trying to figure out which way to go, but it just sucks. It just stinks.
It does. Early in the offseason too. It's just like a kick in the face.
It is. But that's sideways of what we're talking about here. The Andy Haynes rebuttal, I would say, and I hear you defending him. I respect your opinion a lot. I like Andy a lot. I think there's a lot of good. What I would come back with, and I think what irritates fans, what irritates me sometimes is guys, I think they've become too passive in the box under Andy Haynes. Maybe that's an unfair correlation to make, but when I'm seeing, as a fan, when I'm seeing guys take called third strikes, Jack Sawinski's probably been the biggest offender of it. Mm-hmm. What should I be seeing? What is really going on there? Obviously they're not being coached to allow good pitches to just go right across the middle and be called third strikes. What should I be understanding there?
So there's a lot of in between, and whether it's trust, whether it's ability, whether it's understanding of the information they're getting. And you also think Radley Adad also makes a lot of these, game plans out offensively. So like you have multiple layers to this, and it, like you said, it does take time. I think the biggest thing is just the straight buy-in. And Andy Haynes' approach doesn't work for everybody. He is adaptable. He will move and shake, but it's really important for each and every guy to kind of talk with amongst each other. When they really start talking amongst each other and seeing what's going on in the game, I think that's the biggest problem this year I saw with especially the young guys is it being
not enough talking.
Oh. Yeah, like when the game's going on and you're facing Jack Flaherty and his slider is actually backing up that day, but they're expecting it to go, off the plate. There you go. You just struck out looking because you're not paying attention that he's throwing more of a gyro pitch that's just floating in there instead of taking off. You got to pay attention. Used to, we'd run down in the tunnel and watch the movement. Chili Davis taught me that a long time ago. And it makes you understand, okay, this guy's fastball is actually riding in. It's supposed to be a four-seamer, but he's on the side of it today. And then you're like, okay, he's actually throwing a running fastball. I need to make sure to see this ball out over. It's going to really help me. I don't have to worry about it up and elevated. But each and every day that changes just a tick. And I don't think they did a good job of that. I think the information they got sitting in meetings, understanding that was really, really good. I think the meeting hitting wise, I didn't sit in the pitching meeting, was ran more by the collective, not the dictatorship, which I've been on most teams. And I think my biggest thing, loving Andy as a friend or as a coach or not, I think the biggest thing is time. When it comes to hitting coach, I don't know the exact time. 2 years isn't enough because that's kind of been the trend with the Pirates. I think you need, multiple seasons. But the biggest thing, Mackie, and I think this is the most frustrating thing outside of the patient side, is the transparency from the top down. What are the goals? What is a good season offensively? What is actually the attempt you're trying to do? If it's trying to get on base more and you creep up in strikeouts, but hey, we improved 15%. I think sharing that changes a lot of things because in their matrix, they had a good season almost all the way around because the numbers ticked up or even better than what they projected, which is that's what you want, but you want to be a lot better. And I think the fans need to know that. But the only thing that matters to me, you, the fans, and probably most of those players is the W's at the end of the year. Where are we sitting at the end of the year? Did we win our last game? That's the only goal.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. The offensive numbers oddly improved. And I think the vitriol surrounding the offensive coordinator, for lack of a better term, increased.
I think that's coming, by the way.
No.
Yes, I swear. I think at
baseball
some point,
need not become football.
I'm telling you right now, there's going to be an offensive coordinator in that booth.
No.
I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Just stop.
I know. I don't want it.
There's already too many coaches.
There's hardly too many. Yeah. There's too much information.
Yes. Play the game.
Exactly.
Play the game.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to move on. I want to get to a couple different topics, and one of them being our Thanksgiving discussions and the mailbag question I was asked that I wanted to roll out to you. But talking to Don Kelly the other day for it, it's always an enjoyable conversation. I do believe Donnie's going to manage at some point. I think he'll probably make a very good manager. They're highly respected throughout the game. Has had knocks on his door so far. Redskins, Red Sox, Mets. Trying to think of who else came a calling. There was one more. I'm kind of blank. Oh, the Tigers. He's interviewed for some jobs. What makes him so appealing in your mind? I'm going to answer that second. But like when you see Donnie Kelly, when you think about future manager, why do you think he can get from A to B?
He's a player first guy. He always has been, even when he was a player. I think his ability to understand multiple facets of the game from when he was a player and his work ethic. I mean, he's a grinder. I think he does an incredible job working with the infielders, working with first basemen, and then being able to float around. That's something I always watch with whether it's bench coaches, hitting coaches, pitching coaches. How do they move around the field during batting practice to talk to their guys? I think that's one of the biggest things. Some of the best managers I've ever seen. I know Jim Leland did it. Hurdle did it. I saw Don Mattingly do it to really gain an understanding of where the player's at in those moments. He does a really good job of that. I see players go to him, so that's another benefit. But I think all he's getting right now is just more and more information, more and more understanding of how maybe he would manage. I think that's the advantage of being a bench coach. You learn how to run the entire spring training. You're more of a field coordinator during spring training, but you're the ops guy. You're the practice ops guy. I don't think that should be the bench coach's role. I hate that for him, but I think it's a huge advantage. I wish they were just like Robin to the Batman, but maybe that'll change soon in Pittsburgh. I know it's different in some other places, but yeah, I think he's a great human being. I think he's going to be a great manager one day.
Yeah, I love sort of Donnie's makeup, and I think it's ideal for a manager. You know, he's come up through the system playing for old school guys. You know, like the Jim Leland ties are obvious, and I think there's a lot to be gained from old school mentality. And, you know, people will tell you, as good as he might have been with strategy, Leland was a people person, and he went about it a very unique way. But, you know, I think Donnie has been very much schooled in that, but he's also somebody who's not blind to modern day analytics and an approach and all this stuff. And as much as, you know, I might lean toward that way or think that stuff's important, you have to also know this stuff can be an advantage. How do we incorporate this? Anybody who thinks that there's not, you know, a quantitative influence over the game or stuff, you know, happening driven by the front office, like you're naive, you're blind. And, you know, it can't be too much of one or the other. And I think Donnie Kelly walks that line perfectly. And frankly, I think Derek Shelton walks that line very well. You know, Clint Hurdle walked that line very well. And that was something that in Clint's career, you know, I think he had to sort of bring up the analytics side because of, you know, when he managed and how he managed in the era in which he managed, you know, that needs to happen as well. So somebody understanding that sort of balancing act. And I look at Don Kelly and in the middle of that, like you're technically very sound. You've played 92 different positions. You've seen a lot of things. You've been in this position as a player. You understand what it's like on the other side as a coach or even a scout. He had a little brief taste of that. And he's just a good person. Like, strip baseball away. Like, he's just a good human being. And you know, the game needs more of that. I think the timing of all this stuff is interesting too, Ford. I mean, I talked to him the other day about it, and you know, one thing he said, he's like, I'm perfectly happy, content here, seeing this rebuild through, et cetera. Just the timing hasn't really lined up, and he's right. But when does the timing line up? You know, if you want to manage, and to me, my argument is if the Pirates win next season, if they're over 500, if they're flirting with a playoff spot, whether they get in or not, they're going to have people talking about them. And to me, that's when, like a year from now, I think you probably see him go somewhere. I would imagine like that. That's when the timing might be right if people start to take notice of the Pirates.
Couldn't agree more. And two, something I wanted to ask you is, did you see what Milwaukee did with Ricky Weeks? He's not the bench coach. He's the associate head coach.
Okay. I did not see that.
I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that in the game, and then have like I said, a field coordinator in maybe another role where that guy that's next to the manager, which is Murph in Milwaukee, has an opportunity to kind of be those two extra eyes. Because too often the bench coach has got so many responsibilities, they can't actually do that. So I think you're going to see that. And if something like that even opened up, Mackey, I think that gives him a next step. So I think there's going to be more opportunities for, you know, him and Rebello and Andy Haynes to, you know, get kind of plucked away. And you don't want to see that, but that's what happens when you start winning. It's a good thing if that's happening. I know that they have to go to Sherrington and say, hey, we're going to take this interview. But if that's happening, that means we're in a really good spot. And I like your thought on that, because I think about a year from now, when, you know, they're flirting with getting into the playoffs or get into the playoffs as a wild card spot, and you see the improvement that the organization's had, there's going to be a lot of teams knocking on that door.
Yeah, I mean, you have to win.
You have to win,
right? Like,
yeah, because that's what everybody wants, right?
I mean, they can talk about maintaining continuity with a coaching staff, and I think there's something to be said for that. Fans are obviously going to be upset that they're like, "Oh, you're okay with just, you know, running the same people back, or whatever." Everything changes when you win. When you win, you become palatable, or, you know, attractive, or whatever is probably the right word. I mean, I think if they win, I could easily see Cherington ascending to like a president of baseball ops role, and then you promote somebody underneath him. I think that was probably the goal of him coming here, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough to do that when you have 100 loss pace, 200 loss seasons, and now, in the fourth year, you're finally showing a little bit of progress, but not enough to really promote anybody like that. That doesn't look right. But if you clear 500 and you go to the playoffs, then you can say, hey, success, and stuff happens. So cool. All right, moving on to other topics. I was asked a mailbag question I thought was really good for it. Who do you expect to be the Pirates' Jaylen Warren? And the context there is the offensive performer who sort of comes out of nowhere and has a big impact on the club in 2024. I don't know if I had a good answer. And I've been thinking seriously. I sort of threw out Jared Triolo and Josh Palacios as my two candidates from this past year. And I feel pretty good about them. I'd probably go Joshua Palacios ahead of Triolo, I think, just because the pedigree was different. Like, you're taken in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft. Nobody's really expecting a ton. But as we maybe think about this together, kick it around a little bit, do you have anybody for 2024 that you think could be a Jaylen Warren out of nowhere type?
I mean, the quick answer for me is Indy Rodriguez, but I expect,
come on.
But I expect
the top prospects. You're cheating.
I know. I expect it. So, with that being said, I will say,
it's hard, right? I mean, you don't really have to have an answer just because I asked the question.
It really is. I mean, you kind of think through it. Like, I
guess one that I think, like, and this is, I don't know if I present it as a Jaylen Warren thing, because Jaylen Warren's shown up and taken over the starting role for all intents and purposes in a very profound way. Malcolm Nunez is somebody that still intrigues me. And people listening to this, you might have to be a hardcore Pirates fan to even get what I'm talking about. But he's the big first baseman they picked up in the Cardinals trade. Jose Quintana, Chris Stratton. They got back Johan Oviedo and Malcolm Nunez. Double-A 2 years ago, I think, had like 23 homers, something like that. Dude's got a ton of power. He's very large, and he did not have a great season this year. They actually left him unprotected for the second consecutive season in the Rule 5 draft. So theoretically, another team can take him. But if I look at their void at first base, what Nunez can provide, he has a ton of power. He's not terribly far off. He's still young. Could it click for him? Yeah, I could see that. Mm-hmm. I could see it clicking for him. And based on how they're staffed currently at first base, like, is that far-fetched to think somebody that was thought so little of that they're not protected in a Rule 5 draft? And I understand that's not a popular position. It's not necessarily a mark against how they feel about him. But I feel like that would be the closest thing for me coming out of nowhere if Malcolm Nunez would suddenly realize his potential, his shoulder's healthy, whatever, and be a productive player in 2024. I could see that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that too. And I mean, it's easy to think Triolo. I like Palacios in that thought, but I don't know if he'll get the at-bats he needs to be able to really do that. I think if he does, probably. Yeah. If he's getting that many at-bats, it means somebody's hurt, and I don't like that at all.
But I feel like even Triolo has a little bit too much of a profile.
I know. Right? Everybody's got enough. I would say if me and you probably pick the person is, I had someone come up to me yesterday downtown and ask me about O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah.
And he may be the best pick because we don't know. We don't know how he's. I know the talent's there, but the guy has not had at bat since last April. We don't know if he's going to get to play much winter ball. We've talked about that a little bit. But he is going to be an outlier, and he could change the entire team in an instant. I mean, the way that team is shaped and made up could be changed completely with him doing his thing. But I don't know. I mean, because it is not easy to come back from what he came back from defensively, offensively, and we hope he's the guy we think he can be, or even a margin of what he is. So I think that'd be a really good pick for me, because if he comes back and he's healthy all year and he does okay, I think it's a win. If he does better than okay, that team's a different animal.
Cool. A couple of news items, Pirates-wise, I wanted to make sure we throw on there for people listening who might not be reading. If you're not reading, you should be reading. Shame on you. But
reading is good.
Yeah. The Pirates are making a change in their amateur scouting department. Justin Horowitz, they're bringing in for Boston. He's a longtime guy there. What that means for Joe Delicari, and Joe Delicari is sticking around. His role is getting, would say, elevated, tweaked, changed. He's not demoted. He's not getting fired. just to sort of pass along a little bit of the intel that I know. But I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently with Joe. Maybe more of an overarching supervisory kind of thing, as opposed to like boots on the ground, which I think is going to be a little bit more Horowitz and what Delicari has done in the past. Gilberto Celestino, Ford, I don't know how much you know about him, former Twins outfielder, brought him in on a minor league deal. Just a point on that. I was the one that reported that, and everybody screamed that like, oh, the Pirates hot stove. What the heck are they doing? It's just one move, just a minor league deal.
You need those guys. Like we need the Palacios is a great example of why you need those guys. You don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a strong defensively, throws well, runs well, can maybe hit, showed some progress there. Who knows? Worst case, he winds up in AAA. They signed Ryan Borucki to a deal. Forget the exact number, maybe 1.6, avoiding arbitration with him. To me, that's a no-brainer. Did not sense much vitriol over that. Non-tendering Hunter Stratton and Osvaldo Bido. Didn't really surprise me. They lost Bido, who got a major league contract with the A's. So you're all caught up in the past week, news-wise. Cool. We got 2 more topics to get to for it. One is charity work. David Bednar does a ton of it. You've been in major league clubhouses. How does this play? I've always been curious, like, do guys realize that? Does it carry more weight? Do they talk about it? Or is that kind of like separation of church and state? Like, whatever you do out there, it's great, but like, it doesn't matter in here. What have your interactions been with that sort of stuff in a clubhouse?
It really depends on the team. And what I mean by that is kind of the leaders of the pack. Like when I was in Colorado as a young buck, I didn't really have an option with some of the things. The young guys did exactly what they were told. So Troy Tulowitzki did a lot with Children's Hospital. And when there was a sign up, if you're a rookie, you're going. And there was no excuse for it. And Tulo was always there. He always did his thing. And then when it comes to the organizational standpoint, it really depends on who's managing the players. You know, Kelly McGregor was really, really good. I mean, him, and Michelle, when I was with the Pirates, was outstanding at picking the right people for the right things.
Okay.
And they always had their go-tos. Bednar is the go-to. When I was a Pirate, I was a go-to. And you kind of understand that. And when they come to you, you know what they're about to ask. Yeah. And you're going to do it. You know, I think it is.
How do you become a go-to? As a go-to, why would you always say yes? Because you're just naturally friendly, outgoing. What?
Well, one, I think it's a call for us as a player. I mean, you're getting paid an incredible amount of money to play a game for a living, and these kids look up to you. And if you can bring hope or maybe a smile to someone, I think it's well worth it. And it changes your entire day. I mean, there's some days where you're exhausted.
Yeah.
You're going somewhere at 9 o'clock to read and you can't even see the words. But once you're done, there's no better feeling. You're like, man, I did something way beyond myself that I didn't necessarily have to do. And being a huge Jackie Robinson fan, that being one of my favorite quotes is, you know, you're only, I can't think of it off the top of my head because my brain's not working today, but you are who you are based on what you can do for other people that can do nothing for you. And that's the basis of it. And I think David Bednar understands that, being from this community and how important it is to give back. And I think a lot of these guys, it would do them wonders to do it, not when they're maybe forced to do it. Like at some of these events that, you know, a lot of these guys feel like they have to go to, or they're told they have to go to. I think it's really important to get out and do things outside that realm. I mean, when I was, Mac, I don't remember how much you remember about like what we used to do. We had 3 or 4 guys through actual events, and I would love to see that again. I'd love to see a Bednar wiffle ball tournament. Where
you need to have guys with miles on the tires, right? Like
exactly. That's what I was getting to, is like, I think that is the next step of the evolution of the Pirates is having guys. And I was actually talking to Andrew about this, where, you know, they go over to Kutch's house or go hang out as a group, almost a family. We did that with AJ Burnett. He literally got a bus and we went to his house when we were in Baltimore and we played poker. You know, he kept telling us the entire time we were there, is like, if you like it, play better. If you like it, play better. And you don't forget that, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you go to charity. It reminds you of where you're at and the perspective you need. You went 0 for 4 last night and you see a kid come up and give you a hug and say thank you. It's all over. It doesn't matter if you went 0 for 4. You go play that night with a different mindset, and you just kind of play with a different freedom.
Yep.
And you do a lot too. Like, I mean, you're at a ton of these events. What have you seen? I mean, that's something I always wonder, is like, a lot of things aren't shown.
Yep.
And a lot of things you don't even maybe necessarily do a story on, but you're there and you're watching. You can see the guys that genuinely want to be there and what it can do for a player.
Yep. I believe the Jackie Robinson quote you were looking for, life is not important except in
Thank
the
you.
impact that it has on other lives.
Thank you.
And I know what you mean about your brain not working as well. I have days like that as well.
I was like, why can't I think it's my favorite quote?
All good. All good. So yeah, I go to a lot of them. And my philosophy on that is simple. There are times where I need to be critical of a team, of a decision, of a player, of anything like that. It's part of my job. And I think most people respect the job that I hope. I shouldn't say most. There's another side of it too. That stuff deserves to be written about. You know, players going out and doing things, teams going out and doing things, people being positively impacted by it. Like I bring my wife and kids to things, and we like they should see that. I want my kids to be involved. I want them volunteering. I want them participate. You know, it's why we're doing what we're doing this afternoon. I think it's important, but I also think it's important. In the Pirates know this. Like I'm going to chase news and write about things like Johan Oviedo needing Tommy John surgery that they might not like. I might write about the other things that are critical. I'm also going to write about if you're going out to an event in Manatee County, Minnesota, that word drives me crazy, but whatever, in spring training, like I'm going there. You're on a Miracle League field. I'm going there. You know, I think it's fantastic that they do that stuff. And I think players, not that they need the pats on the back, but like they know and respect, like I'm going to be there. Yeah. Good, bad, rain, sunshine, weekend, weekday, I'm going to be there. And I think that consistency is important. I also think it's important that, I guess, events or, to just bring attention to events like that and for people to see it. So anyway.
No, I'll say this. Like, about it. I mean, I played on, I think nine teams total, and there's no team that does it better when it comes to you being there, the best rider in the city, the president, the owner, the GM.
Checks in the mail, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And thanks for being a great teammate and pick me up on the quote. But like, there is something to be said about that camaraderie. And I think they can do a better job as an organization, really lifting that up, especially with Bednar. Like I want to hear everything they do when it comes to them going out. And if without some of the stories you do, I wouldn't know some of the stuff. I wouldn't even know why they're doing it. They may throw a couple pictures up on LinkedIn or Twitter, but you don't really understand the actual cause, who it's for, what's going on without guys like you. So it's so important, because me as a former player, I work for the Pirates and also a fan of these guys, it lets me get to know them better, lets me get to know the city better. And it's so important. I think the values that you're bringing to your kids is remarkable. I've seen what that can do from kids from elementary school all the way up. It was a standard we had with my high school. We had to go open up car doors every single week. And it was so good, because you remembered being young. You did the things, the parents said thank you, and it just made you feel good for the entire day. Like I did something that was really, really important, I think. And if it wasn't, it felt good, and I'm 17 years old. It was really, really neat. So
you're also still a big kid, and you just like doing that stuff. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I am, for sure.
All right. Thanksgiving. Give me the ideal Michael McHenry Thanksgiving spread. What are we doing?
So my very first dish is a corn casserole. If you've never had one, I will make you a corn casserole. But I try to do everything I can to get to desserts, Mackie. So like nothing else really matters. Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm a big, giant little kid, and I want all the like sweet chocolate, strawberry, pie, whatever I can get my hands on. But big meat and potatoes, dressing, corn casserole. I used to eat 1,000 rolls. I stopped that a long time ago. And my favorite outside of the corn casserole are green beans. My mom's green beans are absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I try to keep it old school and simple, but my two main dishes you'll see that are piled on my plate is that beautiful yellow corn casserole and that absolutely mountain of green beans.
Okay.
And then
dressing. At least you're getting your veggies, man.
Yeah, I love. I
so you're not centering it around turkey. I'm surprised.
Turkey makes me sleepy. I did have the best turkey.
Take a nap.
Yeah. But I'll say this: we ordered a turkey last year.
Yeah.
We hosted Thanksgiving, and I was like, I don't know if anybody needs the Griswold to cook turkey, so kind of pushed it aside. Ordered it. It came frozen. No joke. It was a medicine ball. Like you drop it, it was going to break things.
Yeah.
Somehow, my wife gave it a bubble bath. Okay. She de-thawed it and that thing was outstanding. It was a smoked turkey. It was phenomenal, but most turkeys dry. You got to nail that turkey. And I've had great turkey. I've had bad turkey. So I try to make it like, hey, I'm going to wait and see. You know, be a lot of turkey, maybe a little, but something I do every year is I grab that big turkey leg. Put it on my plate for fun. Like
Same.
a Viking.
Do you eat it? You got to eat the Fred Flintstone.
Absolutely. I make it really awkward most of the time at the table.
Okay.
I'm just like, all right, let's hear yours.
Mine is centered around turkey, man. I love it. I don't understand why we only eat turkey once a year. I think it's fantastic. I'm a big turkey leg guy. I would prefer the dark meat over white meat, but I really
knew it. I was going to say you're a dark meat guy. I knew it.
I like both. I do.
You like the tan. I get it.
Big gravy guy. Very in on the gravy. I could do without any sort of like potato. I'm satiated by the stuffing. I want very traditional stuffing. I was saying to Abby, I would be fine, honestly, with like a good green bean casserole, stuffing, and turkey. And I could, until dessert. I don't need a lot of the fancy stuff, although the corn casserole sounds outstanding. I'm not a pumpkin or apple pie. I'm a both. Absolutely. At least two pieces of pie. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You go, I'm not a pumpkin or an apple. I'm a both.
No. I don't like cherry pie or different kind, like blueberry pie. If people make that, I'm not very adventurous on the pies, but yeah.
What about a peach?
Yeah, I can do peach. I can get down with peach pie. It's one of the reasons why I love running on Thanksgiving morning, because like just work up an appetite, man. Yeah. Like burn the calories at the beginning of the day, and then I swear I don't run because like I think it's all that enjoyable. Although as I've gotten older, I've found that enjoyment. I just run to like create a hole so I can eat what I want.
Truth.
Go on the road and run so I can try good food and enjoy myself and not be 500 pounds doing it. So
I love it. Now, how many times do you eat? So like what time do you eat? Like what's the Mackey Day Thanksgiving?
We eat early. We eat like 4:30, something like that.
That's not early. My first one starts at 12.
Okay. All right. Well, it's earlier for me. I would prefer eating late, but so yeah, we'll eat around then, and then I'll eat one or two plates and probably have a third plate later in the evening. I don't have a third plate like right off of the second one. We'll see. Try to put it away.
You have a hollow leg. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. So that does it for this week. As always, like and subscribe. You can check out all of our content, pitching in, as well as the Steelers, Penguins, Pitt, Penn State, all kinds of stuff on the PG Sports Now YouTube channel. We appreciate, as always, you watching. Fort, make sure you have a happy Thanksgiving, sir.
You as well. Have a great one.
All right. And we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.
Tell the family happy Thanksgiving.